Hello, my name is Gloria Roberts. Today we are going to be looking at the topic cell, its types, forms, and the cell theory. Objectives of lesson. By the end of the lesson, students should be able to 1. Define cell. 2. Mention the two types of cell. 3. State the four forms of cell and their examples. And 4. State the cell theory. Definition and history of cell. A cell is the structural and functional unit of life. Cells are the simplest unit of any living thing. They are the basic unit of life. Cell serves as the building block of life. Therefore, no living thing can exist without cell. Cells exist in different shapes and sizes. The guard cell, palisade cell are examples of cells in plants, while the nerve cell, the white blood cell, and the sperm cell are examples of animal cell. Organisms are either made up of only one cell, and they are called unicellular organisms. Examples of unicellular organisms are amoeba, euglena, and paramecium. Or they can be made up of two or more cells, and such organisms are referred to as multicellular organisms, such as volvox, Spirogyra, mammals. The history of cell was traced back as far as 1665, when Robert Hooke, a scientist, observed a slice of cork under a crude microscope. He discovered it had several honeycomb structures that looked like small rooms, and he named the rooms cells. Other scientists like Felix Dunjardin, Theodor Schwann, Rudolf von Virchow, Matthias Lendin, and so on also carried out further work on the study of Robert Hooke years later. However, Robert Hooke is known as the father of cell because he was the first to discover it and published a work on cell. Types of cells. There are two types of cells, namely 1. Prokaryotic cell. This type of cell is found in simple organisms like those in the kingdom Monera, such as bacteria and the blue-green algae. Such cells are made up of single DNA strand. They do not have true nucleus, thus no nuclear membrane. Mitochondria, endoplasmic reticulum, and other cell organelles are absent in them. 2. Eukaryotic cell. This is found in more advanced organisms, where the cells are said to have true nucleus enclosed by a nuclear membrane. Their chromosomes are present in the nucleus, and cell organelles are present as well. Note that cell organelles include structures such as mitochondria, endoplasmic reticulum, ribosome, and so on. Examples are cells of higher plants and animals. Plant and animal cells that we shall be discussing later are eukaryotic cells. Forms of cells. There are 4 forms of cells. Number 1. Cells can exist as independent, single, free-living, or unicellular. They have only one cells which are capable of living freely on their own. Examples of organisms in this form include amoeba, euglena, chlamydomonas, paramecium, and so on. Here are images of euglena and amoeba. Take note of some of the structure that make up the parts of these organisms, such as the contractile vacuole, the plasma membrane, such as the food vacuole, the nucleus, the pellicle, and so on. Now the second forms of cell is cells can exist as a colony. So colony is the second form of cell. They include organisms made up of similar cells which are joined together to form a ball-like structure or organism. These individual cells cannot exist independently as they are connected by a single cytoplasmic strand. The volvox, sponges, and pandorina are organisms in colonial forms of cell. Volvox is formed by the joining of several chlamydomonas cells to form a ball-like mass, as seen in the images here. You can see a single chlamydomonas. When several of these cells come together, they can form a ball-like or mass structure of an organism, and this organism is known as the volvox or pandorina and the likes. Each cells are connected together by what we call a cytoplasmic strand, and so they cannot be separated. Number 3. Cells can exist as a filament. Here, identical cells join end to end to form unbranched strands of filament. Each cell functions as an independent living cell. Such organisms are multicellular, and so they do not share the same cytoplasmic strand. That means the cells in the individual cells are not linked together. They can exist independently on their own. Common examples include the spirogyra, zygnema, oscillatoria, and the oligonium. Here are images of how the spirogyra look like and zygnema. Number 4. Cells can also exist as part of living organisms. A multicellular organism is made up of interdependent cells that can carry out several special functions. Cells can form tissue and so on. Human is a good example of an organism or of organisms that cells exist as part of them. So, here we have the nerve cell and the sperm cell. These are cells which are found in organisms like man and in birds. Parts of cellular organisms and their functions. Number 1 is the contractile vacuole. The function of the contractile vacuole is that it helps to remove excess water as a form of excretion or osmoregulation in unicellular organisms such as amoeba, euglena, and so on. The cilia. The cilia is found in paramecium and it is used for movement. 3. Flagella. Flagella is for movement in chlamydomonas and euglena. 4. Pseudopodia. Pseudopodia is for movement in amoeba. 5. Chloroplast is for photosynthesis and can be found in spirogyra, chlamydomonas, and euglena. Pellicle is found in euglena and it is used for flexibility. 7 is the nucleus. The nucleus controls genetic heredity during reproduction in the cells or organisms. Now let's look at the cell theory. The ideas and the outcome of all the studies on cell by the various scientists mentioned earlier led to the formulation of the cell theory. The cell theory states that 1. The cell is the structural and functional unit of living organisms. 2. That all new cells are formed from pre-existing ones. No one manufactures cells. You can only get new cells from the old ones. 3. All living organisms are composed of one or more cells, so we can have unicellular organisms or multicellular organisms. 4. There is no living thing without a cell, so no life apart from the life of a cell. And so the 5th one, a cell contains information for all its structural and functional development in its nucleic acids. This information can pass down from the parents to the offsprings. Right now we are through with our class. Here we have some questions under our student activities. Go through them, attempt them to see your level of understanding of this lesson. Thank you for joining us in this class. Thanks for learning. So there are answers to the questions above. All you need to do is mark yourself with the questions answer given. I hope you have 100% at the end of the assessment. Thank you once again for learning.